What's up, guys? Today we're going to be previewing the Saints versus Panthers Week 3 matchup in Carolina, which takes place tomorrow. I'm pretty excited for this game because the Saints really need to show that they can bounce back and kind of find their identity on offense. So, what better matchup than the Carolina Panthers for this? I'm not saying that because they're ass, but because it's another division rival and we get to start off our season with 3 straight division games, see how we stack up in the division. I'm pretty excited, so if you guys are, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and just stay tuned for more because I got lots of content coming out this year, and we're going to be recapping the game tomorrow after, so stay tuned for that as well. But let's go ahead and get right into it. To kick things off here, we're going to go ahead and talk about the injury report from Friday, which is when they show all the injury designations. Normally I start this off with the Saints injury report, but there's not really anyone on the Panthers injury report, so I'm going to go ahead and just get that out of the way. The only notable player on the Panthers injury report is pretty much cornerback Dante Jackson. He's considered questionable, but he'll probably play. And then Christian McCaffrey was on it, but he's already deemed that he's going to play. He got a little nicked up in practice or something the other day, but he's completely fine. It's nothing to freak out about. So to the Saints injury report, we got a lot of players on the injury report, and it's not all bad because for the most part this week in practice it was perfect attendance except for today because Alontae Taylor got banged up in practice on Thursday. Did not report to practice on Friday, and he's been ruled out. He's the only player in the Saints injury report ruled out, which kind of sucks, especially if Paulson Adebo can't go, who was limited all week, and he was listed as questionable. I'm not sure if he'll play, to be honest, because in one of his press conferences, he said he was getting closer to coming back, and he wasn't super confident that he was going to come back, so we'll see what happens with Adebo. If Alontae Taylor can't play, then I would really hope Paulson Adebo can play, but we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. Bradley Roby hasn't been horrible at the number 2 cornerback spot, so we'll see what happens there. Alvin Kamara is listed as questionable with those ribs, but he did practice this week, all week. He was limited, but I've seen positive signs. He'll probably play this week. I would expect Kamara to play. Jameis Winston was limited all week in practice with the back injury. He also has an ankle injury. I'm not sure when he got that ankle banged up. He was limited all week. I think he'll probably play. And for those who are saying, oh, rest Jameis because last week he played really bad and it was because of his back. Well, the reason he played bad, unfortunately, was not because of his back. I may have told you guys that in the Bucs game recap, but that was like my initial reaction to the game. I hadn't watched the film or anything like that just yet. And I can definitely tell you guys he played bad because his decision-making was just bad. Could his back have played a factor in maybe a couple of his overthrows? Maybe. But Jameis did not play bad because of his injuries. He legit just had an awful game. So I'm not too worried about the back being a factor in the game if he plays. I just think he needs to get his decision making together. Marcus May is also listed as questionable. I'm not sure what the injury is, to be honest with you guys, I forgot. But he's questionable. He was limited all week. I think he's going to be ready to go. I'm trying to think who else is notable in the injury report. I think that's pretty much it. I think Traquan Smith is going to play. He's been dealing with, I believe, a shoulder injury for a little while now. But he'll be good to go. I think Ryan Ramczyk also popped up on the injury report. Not really sure where that came from, but I think he'll probably play. I'm not too concerned about that. And that's pretty much it for the injury report. I don't want to make this video too long here. So let's go ahead and get right into the matchups. Let's start things off by talking about the Saints offense going up against Carolina's defense. And when you think about Carolina's defense, the main things that stand out to you is the pass rush with Brian Burns. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I am pretty concerned about Brian Burns against the Saints offensive line. But it really depends on where he lines up. If we see him lined up a lot against James Hurst at left tackle, Jameis could be in for a long day, and the pass protection could be in for a long day. But against Ryan Ramczyk, I'm pretty confident that he can hold up well. The linebacker level is pretty solid, and you got Shaq Thompson in there. He's been a pretty consistent linebacker for a pretty long time. And then, of course, you got the great safety. I don't want to say great. He's not like a legend. He's not like a legend or anything, but Jeremy Chin back there is a pretty solid safety. I believe I don't know if he almost won Rookie of the Year when he was a rookie, but he was one of those really solid rookies that just stood out all year. I didn't follow him too much last year. I don't know if he was injured or what. I just didn't hear much about him. But he's pretty solid there. I think the key for the Saints offense is they really have to find their identity because in pretty much 7 out of 8 quarters of the season so far, now granted it's only been 2 weeks, but in 7 out of 8 quarters, the Saints offense has not looked good. If you take out that fourth quarter against the Falcons, which I know we can't really just take it out because it was their best quarter, and they had a insane 16-point comeback on the road in a little over 10 minutes. That's fucking insane. I'm not taking anything away from that. But if you take out that quarter of football, it has not been good. The Saints scored 10 points in those first 3 quarters against the Falcons, and they scored 10 points in 4 quarters against Tampa, 7 of those being in garbage time against the Bucs. And they just haven't really been able to find their identity. Jameis Winston really has not been great, except for that fourth quarter. And his decision-making just seems a little bit off. You know, maybe his chemistry with Michael Thomas and these wide receivers just aren't great yet. And, I mean, last week he really tried to get Chris Olave the ball here. To get the ball. He had, I believe, 13 targets against the Bucs, and it felt like he was just a little bit off on those deep balls. And the one time they finally connected, Chris Olave had a really weird fumble, which he just fell without being contacted, and the ball was on the ground, and it was called a fumble. But I really feel like Olave's breakout game could be any second now, and I feel like this could be the game to do it. No better game than against the Carolina Panthers in Week 3. I feel like Week 3 is really a breakout game for rookies a lot of the time, because I remember Justin Jefferson's breakout game was in Week 3 when he was a rookie, and I think Alvin Kamara's breakout game when he was a rookie was against the Panthers in Week 3 of that season. Now, is this all a coincidence? You know, maybe I'm just speculating and being, stupid, but I think Olave's in for a breakout game. I think Jameis Winston sooner or later is going to finally hit on these deep passes, and I think Olave could be the X factor here, but I think a big key is just for the Saints to find their identity on offense, especially in terms of passing offense with Jameis Winston, get the ball out quick to these receivers, Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and I think, Chris Olave, he can finally take the top off the defense, and Jameis Winston can finally connect with him on that deep ball. Now, of course, we need the O-line to hold up for that. But actually, last week, the O-line played pretty good against the Bucs. I know you see 6 sacks and didn't really look great. But if you really look at the film, the pass protection was pretty good. I feel like 3 or 4 of those sacks that were taken were on Jameis Winston and not really on the O-line. I feel like a couple at the end, just O-line just, couldn't hold up. But I really feel like the O-line as a whole played really well, especially Cesar Ruiz, which is really fucking weird to say. But Cesar Ruiz had probably one of the best games of his career against the Buccaneers, which, like I said, you just would not fucking expect that at all. He sucks. We'll see if this can continue, because that would be really helpful for the Saints offense here. And I think another key to this game really is get Kamara involved in the run game, because in Week 1, before he got injured, the O-line really didn't really hold up in run blocking. Kamara didn't really have anywhere to go. I want to see Kamara involved in the short passing game. I want to see some screens get going against Carolina, and I want to see the Saints get AK and Ingram the ball going at the same time. Get that 1-2 punch going like we saw in 2017 and 2018. That'd be great to see. And I think that's the keys for the offense. Let's go ahead and talk about the other side of the ball. Now, this time around, the Carolina Panthers are led by quarterback Baker Mayfield, which is a little change of pace because last year we saw Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is fucking horrible, but he owned us in that one game. Our entire coaching staff was up. We're not going to talk about that game because that game's almost fucking irrelevant now. The Panthers have Baker Mayfield, and, he was the number 1 overall pick a few years ago, but he's been really mid. He had a pretty solid season with the Browns that year he made the playoffs, but last year he was injured, never really got right. And so far with the Panthers, he hasn't been great. In his revenge game against the Browns, he had a really good fourth quarter, which they really should have won that game, but Jacoby Brissett got the Browns on the field and let rookie kicker Cade York kick a game-winning 58-yard field goal against them to win the game. So, a late effort comeback came back short for them. Obviously, when you think of the Panthers, you think of Christian McCaffrey. He was a little banged up in practice, but he'll be good to go. I think the Saints defense really has what it takes to stop McCaffrey, but I say stop McCaffrey. I don't think you can really stop McCaffrey because, he's a beast. The last time you saw him healthy for a full season, he literally went 1,000 and 1,000, that being 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards. But I think DeMario Davis and Pete Warner, and even if you need Tyrann Mathieu or Marcus May to come in from the secondary to cover him, I think in terms of the passing game, the Saints have everything it takes to stop him. In that game in Carolina last year, we had to cover Christian McCaffrey with Zach Bond, of all people, and if y'all remember anything about that game, y'all know it did not go well at all. I remember one of the very first plays of the game. It was literally just a simple option route, and Zach Bond got fucking lost. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to cover McCaffrey in an option route. That's one of his better routes. We know that with Kamara. Those two are just really talented at that option route out of the backfield. but Zach Bond could not fucking cover him to save his life. I know for a fact that Mario Davis can. I know Marcus May can. I know Tyrann Mathieu can. I know Pete Werner can if he has to. In the run game, needless to say, I know the Saints only have 1 sack on the season, but in terms of the run game, they absolutely smothered Leonard Fournette. He had absolutely nowhere to go. Now, yes, the Falcons had some good runs on them, but the Falcons have a really odd run scheme that the Saints just can't really play well against because of the fact that they're always ending up in some sort of pistol or shotgun formation where it's a read option. The Saints always have to worry about the quarterback running the football. This is not the case with Baker Mayfield. Can Baker Mayfield run the ball? Sure, but I wouldn't consider him a threat at all when it comes to the run game. Is Christian McCaffrey going to be really tough to stop? Yes, but the Saints have all the tools to do it. Even if McCaffrey gets 20 or 30 touches in the game, I would expect him to be decently contained now. I won't be surprised to see McCaffrey get a big play or two, but we'll see what happens. I'm not too worried about it. I'm sure we have what it takes to stop him. In terms of the wide receivers, you got DJ Moore, you got Robbie Anderson. DJ Moore always seems to play really well against the Saints, particularly Marshall Lattimore. I'm not sure why that seems to be the case, but we'll see. I believe in the game in Carolina, we did not have Marshall Lattimore last year. I believe Adebo covered him. He played decently well, but I would say DJ Moore won the game. I think he had a few catches and a touchdown in that game. I don't really remember the game in New Orleans too much last year. I think DJ Moore had a pretty quiet game against Lattimore, so we'll see what happens. I'm not overly worried about DJ Moore. He's a pretty good wide receiver. He's really talented, but I'm not all too worried. If Adebo can't go, we have Bradley Roby playing number 2 corner. I think, what's his name? Robbie Anderson could be in for a big play or two. He hasn't really had great success against the Saints since he joined the Panthers, but I do think Robbie Anderson can definitely take the top off of defense and can have a big play or two. We'll see what happens there. I'm sure the Saints will be more than prepared for that, but that is something to watch out for, the Robbie Anderson big play. But overall, I'm not too worried. I think the Saints defensive line can really get after the Panthers O-line because I'm not saying they're bad, but they're mid at best. I don't know too much about their offensive line. I know they spent a first-round draft pick, I believe number 7 overall or something like that, on an offensive lineman. I'm not sure how. I should probably have more fucking research for this game, but I honestly don't. I just don't believe the Panthers' offensive line is that good. And the Saints, this should be a game where you see the Saints' defensive line actually get some sacks. Because I'm not too worried about Baker. I don't think Baker Mayfield's necessarily great at not getting sacked. I think Baker Mayfield should be pretty easy to sack, if I'm being honest. If there's going to be a breakout game for the Saints D-line, it should be this game against Carolina. And I've been talking about the defense for almost 5 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and just give you guys my predictions. I apologize if I've been rambling a little bit, but I want to get this video out for you guys today before the game starts tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and predict this game real quick. I think everything I said about the Saints, kind of riding the ship and having a bounce-back game will come true. I think the Saints will kind of begin to find their identity on offense. I don't think Jameis Winston will have a shitty game like he did last week in which he threw 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter alone. I think Jameis will get the ball out quick to Michael Thomas, these receivers. I do think Chris Olave is long overdue for a breakout game. And I think the Saints can get the run game going with Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. And I think the Saints defense can play pretty well against the 0-2 Carolina Panthers. I think the Saints can win this game by a score of, I'm going to say 27-17 or 27-14, something like that. I really think the Saints offense is going to have a good game. And I do believe the defense will play more than enough well. That made no sense. I think the Saints defense will play well enough to win this game. I think whenever the Saints are on the road and they're really going to get right game, they always tend to deliver. I really think of games like the New England game last year after the shitty Carolina game last year. The Saints just kind of controlled the game beginning to end when everything wasn't really looking that great. And I think I'm getting similar vibes when it comes to this game. So I'm going to stick to my gut. I've been correct on both games so far. I said the Saints beat the Falcons, and I said the Saints would lose to the Bucs. So if that holds true, maybe the Saints will win this game. But like I said, if I'm wrong about everything I said, I will completely own up to it tomorrow. But I'm excited. Let's see what happens. If you guys are excited, let me know in the comments. What are your score predictions? I need to know. And that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching and made it this far. I really do appreciate the recent support. And I'll see you guys tomorrow after the game. Hopefully we're celebrating a much-needed W. So I'll see you guys then.